Welcome to your Daily 5 for Monday, August 25th, 2025. For one of our communal watching films this week, we picked a movie that I've had on my watch list kind of in the middle, but I thought this would be an interesting kind of wild card to throw into our mix because the other films I have at least seen, but I wanted to do one. I try to have one, if I can, in our mix that I haven't seen, so our reaction is kind of the same, or that the two of us are reacting to it naturally the first time. And so I had a movie from 1973 titled The Clones. And I don't remember exactly how I came across it, but the name popped up somewhere. I looked it up. It had an interesting poster. The premise sounded like it might have some promise. And so I thought, okay, let's watch this. 90 minutes, not that long. If it sucks, then we'll just move on to something else, but it may be something that's worth talking about. And as it turns out, it is something worth talking about. Now, I can't necessarily give this movie a blanket recommendation, because it definitely feels like a movie from 1973. It is very dated at times, not meaning just in how it looks, but even the way that it's filmed. There is a lot of use of slow motion that from a time where people just assumed that slow motion equaled tension and suspense. And that's not always the case. So you're going to see some slow motion bits that are borderline comedic because they're meant to have you on the edge of your seat, but it's really just slow motion of somebody running. And even if the music is good and heightens that scene, it's still just somebody running in slow motion. So the movie starts off and we get this text crawl that's actually very hard to see. At one point, I point this out in the commentary. I'm like, yeah, I can't read that anymore. It's a good thing I can see it before you tilted the camera because they have yellow text on a bright blue sky, which is not easy to read. But in essence, it's talking about the imminent explosion of being able to clone living beings. And it's phrased in a way that seems sinister, kind of like the idea that AI might lead to Skynet, that cloning might mean that anything can be copied. And so you're very clearly understanding where this movie is coming from. And again, it's 1973. A lot of movies at this time were still being informed by the paranoia and anti-authority, anti-government feeling of the time, and this movie is no exception. And we start off and we immediately see an individual being cloned. That's what happens. We see him come out and we see another version of him. And for the rest of the movie, until the very, very end, and this is, I think, something that's remarkable about the film, we never really get an explanation as to what was going on. We don't cut to other people discussing what happened. We're really basically locked on to that main character as he's trying to navigate the world, now realizing that he has been copied. There's another version of him, at least one, because as the opening crawl said, there could be multiple copies, and trying to figure out who did this, why they did it to him, and what he's going to do now that there's another him running around the world. And it is an interesting movie. It does enough things and is posing these questions in a different way than I would have expected, that it remains worth watching for the right viewer. I can't just recommend this to anybody because it is filmed in a very early 70s style, but a cheap early 70s style. It doesn't explain a lot. It does use some really, really almost hokey filmmaking techniques. The score at times is great, but it's very 70s. There's a lot about it. The acting, comes and goes. It's not a stellar example of filmmaking from the time, but it is a unique film. I've never quite seen a movie like this. And not that it does too much that I would call experimental or really, really off the beaten path, but it's just the way it's telling this story. And in fact, it feels like the filmmakers were trying to make a very specific point, and then towards the end of the movie, they sort of chickened out a little bit, which I don't think is bad, but it leads to an ending where, Lando and I could not guess at what was going to happen. You'll hear us in the commentary. We're trying to guess, and we were both wrong. I thought I had it figured out, so did he. We were both incorrect, and the explanation that ends up there definitely feels like they're trying to paper over real criticisms of authority and science by basically introducing something that is James Bond level, where you can go, okay, no, this isn't meant to be taken all that seriously. But I do think that kind of underlying commentary, and again, the way that the story is told, makes it worth watching for the right viewer. Fortunately, this one you can watch for free. It's on Tubi, it's on a bunch of services. And like I said, I can't blanket recommend it to everybody, but if you were to look up a little bit about it, watch a trailer, if it looks interesting, you're probably going to get something out of it. I don't know if you'd ever watch it again, but like me, you might come out of it and think, that's something that I've never quite seen before. And for that reason alone, I think it's worth watching. Later.